The reason we wrote the report is we fully experienced, our members did, and the temporary foreign workers we represented within the construction industry, abuse and exploitation. So it was necessary that we try to catch up and get in front of this issue. So we wrote the report including the history of the program, including all the abuses, and we have 4 case studies and then 12 recommendations. And we're glad that we wrote the report, because now that's the basis of our argument going forward to the federal government, in that they do a full review of the program. The minister has said yesterday that they're prepared to do that, so now we want to make sure that happens at the federal level. The RAV line, which is now called the Canada Line, 2006, 1611, organized the 40 workers from Costa Rica, Central America, Costa Rica, Peru, Colombia, etc. What we found out was most of these workers were paid $3.47 an hour, less than half of the minimum wage, when the going rate in the market was about $35 an hour. They were paid about 10% of that. So we organized the workers. We filed a human rights application, employment standards application, a labor relations board application. We did organize them. Then we went to a first contract, tried to get that. And that case shows that an international company cannot come to Canada and bring their international compensation to Canada if that is discrimination, meaning if it's different than the pay and benefits received by other workers on the site. And we won the biggest human rights award based on Charles Gordon's efforts, the legal counsel, biggest human rights award in the history of the country, $2.1 million that SNC-Lavalin and CELI owed to the temporary foreign workers that were here. The bad part is other than 3 words that don't even say the word construction, other than 3 words referencing the Canadian building trades. Otherwise, there is no acknowledgement, appreciation, or review of the temporary foreign worker program as it affects the construction industry. So that's bad. Also, the changes that were made, some of the recommendations have a detrimental effect on the construction industry. So whether you're talking about how fast the process will happen, that there won't be a transition plan to have Canadians take the place of temporary foreign workers, and they also allowing increases paid to the foreign workers, which will hurt organizing drives and is against the labor code in British Columbia. So there are many recommendations that will have a detrimental effect on the construction industry. So that's all bad. The good news is they did completely ignore the construction industry, allowing us to make a call to now do a full review. And based on what the minister has now said, the Minister of Labor, a review will happen of the temporary foreign worker program, but we're also now talking about include a review of the immigrant mobility program, because we're doing the research on it. But we know that the numbers of temporary foreign workers has been dropping in the construction industry, but the number of temporary foreign workers under the immigrant mobility program has been increasing. And under that program, there is no process at all that companies have to follow. So we know the abuse and exploitation is still out there. There's got to be a full review and changes made. This affects the construction industry generally in Western Canada. You know, what is happening in the commercial market? What is happening elsewhere across the country? So that's why the whole program has to be looked at. What about the oil sands? I mean, should there be temporary foreign workers working in the oil sands today when there's as many as 50,000 qualified construction workers laid off that worked in the oil sands before? why are there temporary foreign workers still working there? But I want to be clear, though, we're not anti-temporary foreign worker. There just has to be shortages properly identified, workers properly brought here and not exploited, no use of brokers. They have to be paid a Canadian wage and benefit standard, and there has to be proper enforcement on the employers so the employers do the right thing. And then last but not least, these workers need a pathway to Canadian citizenship, because our union and others were based on immigrants from around the world coming to the country and staying here, not only building our projects, but building their communities and building their families. And that's what we want for the foreign workers that come here now. But they're being used and abused because of the essence of the temporary foreign worker program. They're brought here for a short time. They're tied to one employer. After the job's over, they're sent home. If they raise any concerns, they're fired and sent home. So it's a systemic problem that we know about, that we've had cases about, and we can help the government remedy these problems. And it's going to help the industry as well, because you look at companies trying to bid on contracts, whether the companies are union or not union, without a level playing field, with the program as it is now, Canadian companies, whether they're union or non-union, have a distinct disadvantage on bidding on contracts if other companies can bring in temporary foreign workers and skew the labor market by paying a lot less in wages and no benefits. And that's what's happening now. So it's good for the economy and good for companies as well to get on board with these changes we're talking about.